The Montana sky looked hand-painted that late afternoon. Golden tones from the sunset bathed the open fields where, in the distance, stood a wooden cabin with large glass windows, an elegant refuge for two souls too famous to live in the city. Jessica sat on the porch, her bare feet resting on the sun-warmed wood. In one hand, she held a glass of white wine. In the other, she slowly flipped through her wedding album, a fairy tale ceremony with wildflowers, hanging lights, and carefully chosen guests. Every smile from that night seemed eternal, including Justin's. He appeared silently behind her, that familiar charm still in his eyes, even when he was tired. Justin Timberlake, pop star, global icon, the man who had made millions cry with his music, was now just Justin. The husband, the father, the man she had chosen to love. "Looking at the past again?" he asked, softly smiling. "Sometimes it's good to remember why we started," she replied, with no trace of irony. He leaned in, kissed the top of her head, and sat beside her. For a moment, the world was quiet again. Just the two of them right there. The problem was, those moments were becoming increasingly rare. In the early years, everything felt like the movies. They laughed often, shared trips, adventures, projects. Jessica still remembered the first time he sang her a new song at the piano in their living room, before even showing it to the producer. "This one's just for you," he had said. She believed him, but real life doesn't follow a Hollywood script. Over time came the commitments, the relentless schedule, the shows in impossible time zones. She adapted, tried packing bags with a baby on her hip, raced between film sets and airports. But there were nights when she lay in their bed and felt as if she were alone on a lost ship. "Are you really going to London next week?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Just for 3 days, Jess. I promise I'll be back for Silas's birthday. I've already arranged everything with my manager." Jessica forced a smile and nodded. It wasn't the first promise he'd made, and it wouldn't be the last to be broken. But how do you explain to the world that the perfect marriage might be falling apart? How do you tell them that the smiling couple on magazine covers hides, behind closed doors, uncomfortable silences, and unspoken longing? She closed the album carefully, like someone shutting an old door. Justin got up to take a video call. It was the tour producer. Jessica stayed there, alone, staring at the horizon, and wondering how many times a heart can hurt without making a sound. In the cabin, the echo of fame still lingered. But between light and shadow, a hard truth was beginning to emerge. Not every love survives the applause. The doorbell rang at 2:37 a.m. Jessica woke up with her heart racing, the room bathed in shadows, and her phone glowing beside her. Justin, 17 missed calls. The doorbell rang again. She got up quickly, her robe loosely tied, and hurried down the polished wooden staircase that creaked under her feet. When she opened the door, there he was, red-eyed, hair tousled, breath heavy with whiskey. "Justin, I didn't want it to be like this," he said, unable to look her in the eye. Jessica stood still, frozen, like someone trying to make sense of a scene that shouldn't exist. She stepped aside and he walked in. He smelled of late night and guilt. "You went to the after party, didn't you?" she asked, arms crossed. "It was just dinner with the team. Then," he hesitated. "Then they invited me to a club. I didn't want to go, but they insisted. It was networking, you know." Jessica let out a dry, ironic laugh. "Networking? With 22-year-old models in your lap?" He looked at her, startled. It wasn't just intuition. She knew. Someone on your team filmed it. It's in an assistant story. You on the couch, with her in your lap, whispering in your ear. Justin tried to explain. Said it was nothing. That it was all an act, a misinterpreted moment, that he was just laughing at a joke. But for Jessica, the problem wasn't what he had done, it was what he was becoming. A man of automatic excuses, tired eyes, and expired promises. That night, she didn't cry. She simply left him in the guest room and went upstairs to lie next to their son, seeking shelter in a world that was still pure. In the days that followed, the media began to stir. Gossip sites hinted at a crisis in paradise. A celebrity blogger claimed to have exclusive info that Jessica had left the house for a few days. The happy family photos disappeared from both of their Instagrams. Their publicists remained silent. But inside the house, there was a void far crueler than any headline. Jessica began to feel like she was sharing a home with a stranger, someone she still called love, but whose eyes she avoided meeting at breakfast. Justin, in turn, buried himself in work. "It's my escape," he said. But the truth was, he didn't know how to fix something he couldn't pinpoint when it broke. One overcast afternoon, she found a note left on the piano. "I love you, Jess. I just don't know if I'm still the man you deserve." She read it and placed the paper in a drawer. Not out of affection, but out of pain. It was the first sign that the end might be closer than they thought. The whispers had become muffled screams, and the dream marriage, a distant shadow, growing further out of reach. The news exploded like dynamite on Wednesday morning. Justin Timberlake arrested for driving under the influence in New York, blared the TMZ headline in giant bold letters. The accompanying photo showed the singer in handcuffs, head down, eyes half closed, as if wishing to disappear. The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Notifications poured in nonstop, and the phones of managers, producers, and family members vibrated in unison, like hearts in a state of emergency. Jessica woke up to the sound of messages flooding her phone. The first thing she saw was the photo. The second, his name trending worldwide. The third, her son's gaze, sitting at the edge of the bed with a tablet in his hands, completely unaware of it all. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. It wasn't even surprising anymore. It was just the climax of a story that had been quietly falling apart. Hours later, Justin's team released a cold, bureaucratic statement citing exhaustion and psychological pressure. But no well-written press release could erase the security footage that surfaced later that afternoon. Justin stumbling out of a bar, laughing loudly with a woman by his side. She holds him by the arm. They get into a car together. 20 minutes later, he's pulled over by the police. Jessica watched the video 3 times. Not for confirmation, she already had that, but for the stupid hope that maybe, just maybe, she had misunderstood. But what hurt the most wasn't the implied betrayal. It was the indifference. The night before, she had sent him a message. "Good luck with the label meeting tomorrow. I love you." He read it and never replied. Now, social media had turned into battlegrounds. Half the fans called for compassion, citing the intense pressure celebrities face. The other half demanded justice, cancellation, divorce. Jessica, however, posted nothing. Not a word. Not a photo. Her silence spoke louder than any statement. A few days later, she left their Los Angeles home with her son and went to the property in Montana. She needed distance from the media, from fake friends, from questions. Justin tried to call, sent long voice messages, said he was ashamed, that he wanted to change, that he loved her. But Jessica knew regret is not the same as transformation. And love, at least healthy love, shouldn't hurt this much. In the privacy of the cabin, she opened an old notebook, the kind she used early in her career, and wrote a single sentence in the center of the page. "Sometimes, the man you love is the same one who will break you in silence." Outside, snow had begun to fall, and with it, the last memories of a marriage that no longer existed. The house in Montana, once a backdrop for shared dreams, now echoed with the silence of absence. Jessica spent her days caring for their son and taking long walks through the surrounding woods, trying to find some peace amid the emotional storm settling in her heart. Meanwhile, Justin lived in New York, in a spacious but empty apartment where the sound of his own voice seemed like his only company. His tour schedule was temporarily suspended. The moment was for reflection, therapy, and above all, confronting himself. They both embarked on distinct but similar journeys. He sought to rediscover himself beyond the stage. She tried to rebuild her identity beyond marriage and motherhood. Jessica was invited to star in a dramatic series that explored stories of female resilience. It was the chance she needed to focus on herself, to transform pain into art, and maybe rediscover her inner strength. At the first script meeting, she felt the weight of the other women's eyes, silent allies in her struggle. Justin, for his part, released an album that surprised fans and critics alike with its raw honesty. The lyrics spoke of guilt, regret, and hope, revealing a side of a star never seen before. In interviews, he admitted the fragility fame often hides and the personal cost of his mistakes. Despite the physical and emotional distance, they maintained mutual respect. especially for Silas, their son who had always been at the center of their decisions. Through careful messages, they arranged visits, support, and presence, aware that even if romantic love had faded, the family bond needed to be preserved. The media, which once devoured every misstep, now speculated whether there would be a reconciliation or a final divorce. But Jessica and Justin had learned that not everything needs to be decided under the spotlight. Some paths are walked in silence, with small, courageous steps. That night, Jessica sat in front of the mirror and said aloud, "I can be more than my scars." On the other side of the country, Justin hung up the phone after an honest conversation with his therapist, knowing the real battle would be with himself. Between light and shadow, they walked, no longer together, but still moving forward. Time passed like a silent river, carrying away what couldn't be held onto. Jessica and Justin went their separate but parallel ways, marked by difficult choices, painful lessons, and a quiet respect that didn't always need to be spoken aloud. At the premiere of the drama series, Jessica shone under the spotlight that once frightened her. She was no longer just the wife of a star, nor the woman marked by scandals. She was a whole woman, the author of her own story, rebuilt from the ashes. Justin, meanwhile, stepped onto the stage for the first time in months. Cheered not only for his music but for the courage to show vulnerability, he understood that fame is a stage, but real life happens behind the scenes, where no one's watching. They met at a charity event, a neutral space blending past and present. The look they exchanged was heavy with memories, smiles and tears, unspoken promises and forgiveness. Without words, they understood that the love they had wasn't like the ones in soap operas or magazine covers. It was more complex, more human, more real. And sometimes, loving someone means letting go. That night, as the city lights sparkled in the distance, Jessica sat by her window and reflected. How far can we forgive the shadows in the hearts of those we love without losing our own light?